Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special new podcast from INDIAai. We usually have a last week on INDIAai, but this time we are having the last year on INDIAai. As we all know, 2020 hasn't been the best year to have, and we are still going through the pandemic that has affected each of our lives in a very bad way. But it's the year is coming to an end. A new year awaits us. So here we are, the most of the editorial team of India AI. I know there are a few faces missing, like Nivedita, Parul, etc. So we are here bringing you some of our favorite stories and favorite use cases of AI from 2020, in a way of looking into 2020, how that year went, and our expectations and predictions for the year to come, that is 2021. So let me start. Let me introduce the incredible people with me. I have Anjali Pathak. She is the India AI's product and social media person, and she is a drone expert. Uh, and we have Sindhuja, which you are all familiar with. We have Samiksha, who is new to our team and has been, doing a great job. And then we have the legendary Soumitra Das Gupta, aka Soda. So he is, we are all a big fan of Soda. He has his way of doing things, writing. It's great to have this call with you all, and it's great to share our thoughts on this particular year. So let me start with Samiksha. Okay, so what do you think what's your favorite, let's say, use case from 2020 in AI?
Yeah, well, since I've been focusing on education and skilling most part of my journey with INDIAai, I think the biggest use case that we've had, also in terms of policy, is the integration in a major way of artificial intelligence into our national education policy 2020. And that's something that I'm really proud to have written about and again to talk about today. The NEP 2020 has, in no uncertain terms, highlighted the importance of artificial intelligence and other digital skills, and also done some great job at integrating that into our education system right from the school level, and right from teaching coding and digital literacy skills to young students, to introducing AI courses at college levels, and also introducing research initiatives, which is through the National Research Foundation (NRF), which is focused specifically at advancing AI research in the country and putting India on the map as a leader in AI. So that, I think, is one of our biggest achievements in 2020, given the grim year we had, but we did manage to get some good things on the charts.
I think you're on point here, right? Education and skilling is one of the priorities we have seen in 2020, considering that in order to take advantage of what the economic benefit or the social benefit we speak about AI, you need to have a robust workforce. And one thing I was really impressed by was the Responsible AI for Youth initiative from the Ministry of Electronics and IT. And I think the SOTA has covered a story on that, right? A project that done by one of the students on Responsible AI for Youth. I think it's about detecting the emotional state of someone else, right?
Yeah.
So this is it's very interesting how skilling is happening. And similarly, a few months back we had the second launch of Step Up module for the AI module for the Adult Innovation Mission and ATL, another Tinkering Lab. And you have seen many kids coming across with incredible tools, especially one that will help people with disabilities and things like that. So this is exciting, how AI has become this major force for an overall social well-being. And I think, coming to Soumitra, tell me, what are your, interesting stories you covered this year on AI?
Yeah. So, the most powerful thought which I leave the year with is during Raise. So Raise was one of the best things to have happened to me in recent times. I got to listen to some great speakers. Vala Afshar, Vala Afshar's session was very powerful. So he gave the example of the Olympian team, I think sometime in 2000. So in 1998, that team had fared very poorly. It had fared poorly in all the areas they were participating in. And the Olympics was just two years away. I think it was the Sydney Olympics, if I'm not mistaken, was just 2 years away. So the coach calls everybody, calls the entire team, and he says that from this day onwards till the time the event is 2 years down the line, whatever you do, whether you're eating, whether you're socializing, whether you're going out, sleeping, training, whatever you do, just ask yourself that question, that is it going to make that boat go faster? I think that's a very powerful thought. And for a nation like ours, there's a 15 trillion or a 17 trillion, anything between 15 and 17 trillion kitty that we are looking at by 2030, the AI kitty, which will add to the world global GDP, which is almost 14%, I read in the report yesterday. So if for a country like ours, if we can be that obsessed, that everything that we do at a structural level, at an operational level, at a policy level, will it help us to capture a bigger chunk of that 15 or 17 trillion dollar that awaits us? I think that would be taking cue from what Vala Afshar said, being obsessive about that dream. I think that would be a good thing to have, and that would cover a whole lot of things from skilling to ethics and various other things. That's one point. The other point is that Jibu, you mentioned about that story about mental health, depression, kids being depressed. That was a very interesting thing. But what struck me while doing the story is that in India, in a country like India, mental health is not seen as as easily as it is seen in some of the developed nations, and especially in young children. Young people can be very cruel. They can sometimes young people can be more cruel than adults. We have seen that in many times. So I have always wondered that if and that awareness is not even there in big cities, so leave alone tier 2, tier 3 locations. It's not even that awareness, not even there in large cities. I always thought that, once you identify somebody who's going through depression and in a smaller town, for somebody who's say 11, 12, 13 years old, what sort of AI is one thing, the technology is one thing, the human element. How is the class going to look upon those children? We all grew up in schools, and there was a fat guy in class who was made fun of. There was the guy with bad teeth who was made fun of. We've gone through that. We've all gone through that. So what happens to somebody who you identify as suffering from a mental challenge like depression? So is that information kept confidential? I mean, are these people counseled confidentially, or is it made public? And if so, then what are the after effects? So while doing the story, it struck me, but of course, I didn't have enough data or follow-up points to do it. The other interesting thing which I did was this agricultural story, pest identification and all of that. While doing it, I did a lot of research, and I didn't realize that it's such a complex thing. For us, I mean, all of us have a college education and postgraduate education, all of us here today. But for somebody who doesn't have that education to understand that pesticides come at a cost, and you just can't put pesticides because it will also eat away into your crop fertility and all of that, just because pesticides is easily available. But to be able to understand that, and for different type of crops, like every crop will need different kind of this thing. So it requires a certain level of maturity and education, which we ourselves may not be equipped with. And for a farmer who who may be illiterate for all you know, but he's very good in what he does. I think these are some of the top thoughts which left with me, that we are dealing with some complex ideas, very, very complex ideas, and trying to distill it down to people who lead very simple lives. So this is what I would say.
In fact, Soda, the Vala Afshar session that I think it was you who covered it. It was one of my most favorite pieces from Race that we wrote, and I can read it right now. I have it written on a little post-it on my table, which says, will it make the boat go faster? I think it was something that it stayed with me from Race. So yeah, that's also the power of good reportage and good writing.
That's a very good reminder for everyone of us. Yeah. And I have to apologize in advance, as usual. As Sunduja knows, some background noise will be happening here. And today is Christmas caroling, so I want to blame it on that. So I think people are out
Caroling. That's a good kind of background noise to have right now. It's fine.
Let's not call it noise then.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's coming to Vala. So that was an interesting session, and I mean, let's talk about race itself, right? I mean, if you look at where India's in AI in India, race was something like a milestone. We will we'll be saying again in the future. The first edition of Race 2020, which was done in a virtual environment, and inaugurated by the Prime Minister himself, and the number of participation around 80,000 people coming, 150 countries, and incredible panels. Vala Aerospace is just one of the incredible participants. Raj Reddy, you had Chandrasekhar, Mukesh Ambani, with so many, Victoria Baines. It was, I'm missing a lot of names, but such an amazing initiative. And I want to take a few minutes to say, the impact it has made, right? Especially to us, right? We were all being exposed to different ideas, right? When Raj Reddy points out the importance of NLP, how it can be a transformational force. It was very much eye-opening. Similarly, you had the panel where Sangeeta Gupta of NASCOM and Balaraman of IIT Madras, we're talking about data markets. It was an incredible panel, even though there were some interruptions in between. Similarly, so many incredible insights came out. And I think one of the striking thing that I realized was how many initiatives on AI has been happening in India, especially from a hardware perspective, as CDAC has been doing. And, it struck me, why this information is not out there. We should be proud about the work, institutions like CDAC has been doing. I think Sindhuja covered that part, isn't it, Sindhuja?
Yeah, I did actually. In fact, I think it's so great that every one of us have such a unique takeaway from this particular year, and I think it's also very telling of what we've been taking ownership of in the AI space itself, which is so vast, and we've been trying to do that to the best of our capabilities. And for those who obviously know on this team, and for the ones who are listening, I have actually spent most of my time here at INDIAai ever since I joined, basically just covering and tracking what the industry is really up to and what startups are really doing, and really trying to understand the perspective of how AI can really change the ecosystem that we're a part of, but from also from specifically from an industry perspective. And I think that has helped me understand better some of the contributions that are actually being made at this point in time. And I think it's great to really find a platform like this to talk about it. And I think, answering your earlier question, Jibu, about what really is a huge takeaway for me from this year with respect to AI, I think for me, it would definitely be the launch of India's fastest supercomputer. For those who are not very familiar with the concept of a supercomputer, it is basically that one structural unit that is responsible for the levels of computation that we want to essentially see AI do, the kind of predictive models that ML is capable of producing, the kind of different data sets that can essentially be crunched. There is just so much in terms of what a supercomputer holds as part of that entire ecosystem that AI really produces. So it was a landmark moment, I think, this year to have CDAC to be part of, a very prestigious platform like RAISE, to really where they spoke about how they have actually fostered an entire ecosystem with respect to supercomputers right from 1988. It was not something that happened in the last couple of years. I think I even noted that during one of our earlier interactions, where CDAC has been laying the groundwork for this for almost 32 years. And that is something that I think finally is now brought onto a world stage today, where I think just about a month and a half after RAISE happened, India finally got the distinction of hosting and having the world's sixth fastest supercomputer and India's largest and fastest. So this is Param Siddhi AI, and for now it is functional out of the CDAX facility in Pune. But very soon, once it's completely online and once it's completely available through the National Supercomputing Mission, where it is, through which it has been sanctioned, and CDAC has been working on this project with several industry leaders like NVIDIA. It will be a huge step ahead for the AI research and development community. Some of the most incremental problems that we have spoken about in today's podcast, when it comes to agri, healthcare, when it comes to cybersecurity, these are the kind of issues that a supercomputer of that size can really take on. For those who don't really know, I'm sure back in April, May, when coronavirus was at its peak and people were struggling to find some sort of a cure, not necessarily a vaccine, but what drug can really help, manage the patient caseload. And one of the discoveries was actually remdesivir, which was popularized even by the likes of Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw and a lot of other luminaries in the biotech space, where and that particular discovery was made by AI. So there is immense potential, I think, especially since we're getting into a year which is going to be so important for the rest of mankind, hopefully to survive and not, to develop a certain level of immunity and to overcome this pandemic that's literally taken over our lives. I think AI is going to play a very huge role in making that happen, and supercomputers are going to be very, very critical to that mission happening. So for me, I think the launch of Param Siddhi and just the start of the conversation around hardware in making AI a very critical part of our mission as a country to become an AI hub. I think for me that dialogue, having gotten a lot more maturity this year was very, very important.
Yes, I completely agree with you, Sindhuja. I mean, hardware is something that often neglected when that conversation happens, right?
Right.
We can speak about as much as we want about things like data localization, but without necessary hardware, how are you gonna take advantage of this data, right?
Yeah.
And coming to since we live in a very different area, and we have seen many technologies being repurposed, reused, and modified to, like you mentioned about the drug discovery. One of the technologies that has made a huge impact this year was drones. And Anjali, what is your takes on how drones helped Indians? Let's say looking from a perspective of social empowerment.
So I totally agree with you, Jibu. I think before the coronavirus outbreak, drone in India had some major security issues, concerns, and I think initially they were only used in armed forces. Slowly but surely, I think they pervaded throughout different domains such as agriculture, surveillance, etc. But I think this year specifically, drones managed to capture the spotlight by helping government combating COVID-19. There's one particular startup that I would love to speak about, and I think I covered that on the portal as well. It's called Garuda Aerospace. It's a Chennai-based startup. So the startup over the time has built several agricultural drones, and they have been working with the Tamil Nadu government, specifically forest department, since a very, very long time. But ever since the COVID-19 breakout, Garuda has been helping several states across the country carry out automated and AI-powered drone-based sanitization projects to disinfect public spaces to contain the spread of the coronavirus. I think they also employed these drones in different hospitals across Tamil Nadu just to make sure that the sanitation workers, they are not exposed to this virus, and at the same time help hospitals keep their surroundings absolutely sanitized. So I think they basically are called as digital janitors. And I think not just that, Garuda, in association with the police department of Chennai, they have used these drones for surveillance purposes to monitor the people who were, loitering freely in a specific location under the lockdown. And in fact, they added this is a very interesting feature. They added a loudspeaker in their drone for the police department to make announcements, so that so police specifically, they don't have to visit each street to make these announcements physically, and I think they have been doing a pretty good job. They were covered by many publications as well. I think that's
all about, I think, drones, how drones have emerged in this particular year. And not just that, I think drones have been helping people, farmers specifically, in the agricultural domain as well. I believe a combination of these technologies, machine learning, computer vision, along with IoT and drones, I think they can help farmers increase output and expedite the production of the crops. Um, there are certain startups that I covered who have been using AI and drones to help farmers, not just by employing drones. They are also, helping farmers by passing on that information about technology. And the best part is that these people who are not well literate, they want to learn about it. They're open to these technologies. I would want to mention two startups. One is V Robotics. They come under the division of India Flying Clubs. They have been educating the farmers from the tribal village of the Hanu Palgad region in Maharashtra in using advanced and feasible drone-based technologies on their lands and orchards for remote sensing the data. And I think farmers so far, they have already acquired this knowledge of crop rotation, fish farming, organic agriculture, bio-waste management, and whatnot. And I think they have been utilizing this technology called drone in combination with AI. So that's pretty amazing that these farmers are really open to this technology. Then there's another startup called Fussel, which is a climate smart precision AI powered platform, agriculture platform that has been using IoT and data science as its building blocks to provide factual information to the farmers at a very right time. So I think they have been providing real time information about the crops and weather, and that has been helping the farmers big time. So it's just amazing how in India specifically, the startups are emerging, who want to, help people for us. They all of these AI startups who are using drones, they have some sort of social aspect to it that they want to help people no matter where they are. So I think all in all, the drone technology is disrupting the business, and this pandemic, I think, has only boosted this drone market. So I think the demand is generated, and the product is already out in the market. Now the companies have to concentrate on manufacturing a more stable product. But at the same time, I think it's really important, for industry, startup, government collaboration, so that we can take this technology in most of in the remotest areas, deliver it, and then get whatever how do I put it, just help the people in a way that we can only think of at times, right? So it's really important. The collaboration part is extremely important in that context.
I think one thing that really excited me in last year, we speak about how AI influenced three areas, right? One is healthcare, as we spoke about COVID, drug discovery. We have seen so many cases of healthcare. Cancer detection. Like now as recent as the solving the grand challenge in biology, right? AlphaFold. Yeah. I'm not getting into that because if I start the channel, I can speak about that for hours. But we have done a different podcast to check out that. Now coming to another area is education, right? And how AI is acting as especially things like adaptive learning, those kind of learning systems are being developed. And one example, hi Shadow, it's good to see you on the podcast. Yeah, definitely get to Shadow for a how AI.
A very special appearance in this year endo.
But before that, in education, I mean, we came across the Tara from Learning Matters, which are helping people learn English. And then the most part I got excited is agriculture. I think the scale and scope of innovation that can happen in agriculture is gigantic, right? But from weather forecasting, soil quality assessing, right, pest detection. I mean, it goes on, right? The quality assaying, And another thing is, normally there's a challenge, right? When you or me, we go to a bank to access a loan, right? There's a credit history, right? You can now there are applications like lending card and all these credit, ML-based credit rating credit companies who can lending companies who can give you a loan based on your online purchase activities, your bank statement, things like that. But we have to understand that farmers are, a significant number of Indian farmers still live by cash, and even though they have a bank account, their transactions are more cash oriented. And for those people, how do you assess credit? And that's another area where AI has been doing a remarkable job, right? Assessing credit based on the land they have, the crops they have, the history of the harvest. So that's another way. And similarly, things like what Cropin and Interlaw Labs, all these guys are doing. So I think that's one area that's excited me a lot in this year. How AI has transformed agriculture. Now, coming to 2021, let's see what are your expectations. What do you expect of 2021 in terms of AI?
So, so my expectation, one expectation of AI is that it is able to more accurately predict in advance. If I look at we keep talking about the predictive and the prescriptive aspect of all these technologies. But black swan moments like the pandemic has created, it completely disrupted the world, and millions have suffered. So many people have died and lost their livelihoods. But I would really like the AI engine in future to be able to predict, if not accurately, at least to some extent, when these black swan moments are likely to occur. Because the way we are encroaching nature, we are eating away into animal space, and they are living with us in close proximity. These viruses are not going away anywhere. It may not be. I'm not saying that we'll have another COVID-19 like attack in future, but even something like what SARS did to Hong Kong 15, 16 years back, those places. These things are going to be there, but we need, in healthcare, speaking purely from healthcare aspect, we need to be able to predict these things in a better, these disasters, or even other disasters, natural disasters like earthquakes and floods and all that, prevent these kind of things. And the other thing which I would really want, which is a little easier, is the economic impact of COVID. So there are only been rough estimates so far, globally and from country to country. But we would like a far more accurate estimate of what the economic impact of COVID is likely to be, and not from like a 3 to 5 year horizon. It's always easier to predict 5 years hence. Nobody is there to check what's going to happen. But can we have an engine which predicts what's going to happen 2 months, 3 months down the line? So these are the two things I would love to see.
I think Saurabh made a really compelling point here, right? I mean, there's a saying that it's not artificial intelligence you should fear; it's the natural foolishness you should be fearing, right? Because the Blue Dot program actually warned about the pandemic, like I think 1 year, ago, exactly 1 year ago.
Yeah, 31st December.
Yes, and another thing Soumitra pointed out about the transfer of viruses and other things from cross species transfer. I think there's some work happening, and I have slight knowledge on that. There are I think especially with animal husbandry department in government, they are working on a database that can track a possible jump of viruses, and I think it has to do a lot of work by tracking animals, the domesticated animals, placing it is a very complex process. But I think once such a project is being completely worked out, you will be getting some sort of heads up, right? Before we, right, like this time we were like thrown into the deep end, without much to defend ourselves, right? Yeah. So that's one thing. And personally, I feel in 2021, I would like to see more systems that takes less data for learning. We keep hearing about systems like one-shot learning, transfer, learning transfer, knowledge transfer systems. and for writer learning, things like that, right? So I think the AI as a technology, I hope DeepMind will keep breaking new barriers, but at the same time, I would like to see technologies that are especially when the integration of edge computing and quantum computing, right? That's going to be crucial, right? So that's one thing I'm looking forward. I don't know how quantum computing could be huge. The exponential power it can generate is humongous. So coming to Sindhuja, what are your thoughts? How you see 2021?
I do foresee the first few months to be again nothing but the pandemic again. I think two reasons. Even without the new strain of mutation that we're currently unfortunately beginning to see signs of in India, even regardless of that, we would still be talking about vaccine delivery. So now that we have this mutation as well, I think the whole game is completely changed again for 2021. If we're thinking that we're gonna get out of this anytime soon, it's not happening. So I think it's best we prepare ourselves, and sort of start planning accordingly. At least from an AI perspective, I think if anything at all, it just makes it makes a case for something more substantial, at least in the field of ethics and bias. I think that's something that's a very, very important aspect of AI, which is also sort of developing as rapidly as the technology is. It's kind of happening side by side. You really can't isolate one and the other. And with vaccine delivery, there's going to be a whole other set of problems, like who's going to actually get it first. Sure, right now we've the governments have said that of course the healthline workers are going to get it first, but we all know that there are different strata of society, there are different kinds of people, there are different people with comorbidities, there are different age groups that we have to look into, the ones with socioeconomic status. There is just so many different categories of people, and this is just one country. This is just India. We're not even getting to how these things work in other countries, supposedly more advanced in the AI technology side of things, like US and China and say the European Union. But where do they stand when it comes to ethics? Because I think by and large, we all have the same problem there. So how are we going to actually go about collecting the data to ensure that vaccines are being delivered the right way, are being given to the right set of people, who's going to be getting it first, second, third. So there are going to be a lot of ethical debates that are going to come about in the next few months, I foresee. And if we are relying so heavily on AI to help solve our problems with respect to healthcare, then this is also something that will come literally close behind. So I just hope that researchers, the medical fraternity, governance especially, also can keep an eye on this and try to sort of catch the ball before it comes flying at them. You're on mute.
Jibu, you're on mute.
You're still on mute.
Oh God. Yeah. Yes. Okay. I'm unmuted. Okay. Anjali, how do you see 2021 in terms of AI?
Well, I believe Sindhu just stole my point. About AI being biased, I totally agree with her. I think it's really important for us to first remove that bias from our brains first, and then I think move on to technology. I think this year we've seen some of the examples for that. About how bias in AI has actually affected everything. For instance, that UK exam issue that happened, right? So I think bias is something that is ingrained in our brains. We need to remove that first and then move on to technology, make it better. And I think for me personally, I believe I think that's pretty much about bias in AI. But I would like India as a country, we are slowly and steadily progressing towards these emerging technologies. And we are talking a lot about AI. We have been publishing case studies, research reports. But I just want the government, specifically the education department, to sit and think about how we can use AI and make sure that the education is it's spreaded towards the remotest areas as well, and not just these metropolitan cities, right? How are we going to use AI for that social purpose? That is something that I believe we should start doing and think about. And apart from that, I think it's just AI is AI. I think it's only going to get better every month and every year. We just have to make sure that our focus is on making this world a better place.
I think one thing Anjali mentioned, the bias and things, ethical issues here. Myself, kind of comes from an AI ethics and responsible AI background, so that's going to be very crucial. We are having so many serious incidents happened last year, like this year. The issue with Timothy Gerbu and things like that. At the same time, you are to ask these questions, right? How do you incorporate these ethical norms into these AI systems? How do you ensure that AI systems won't act against a human interest and those things? But like you said, there's a whole question, right? So an AI system became biased because there's a bias in the data set. The bias in the data set pretty much happens because of the human bias we have, right? So essentially, people say, it's like a reflection, right? AI bias is just a reflection of the bias we have as humans. But that being said, I think I expect 2021 to have more initiatives on algorithmic auditing and things like that, where we ensure that these things are bias free and ethically of high standards. Because see the impact. See, for it's like, see, let's assume one of us has a bias, right? Let's say I'm biased towards cats, over dogs, and that will only affect one cat or a dog, right? So I have a cat and dog here, and I prefer to feed the cat first over the dog. So that sort of bias will only affect one dog. But now look at this algorithms, right? The people who are getting the services or being the beneficiaries are now like in lakhs and millions. And if one bias instead of one cat, it's going to be exponentially higher, right? Like what we said in UK, right? So what happened in UK is good students coming from a poor background, economically backward areas, schools in there, their grades got staggeringly lower because they this algorithm, they decided to add a factor called the previous performance of the school into the algorithm. So and again, these are human errors that we keep seeing. So that's one area I will prefer 2021 to get a hold on. And Samiksha, what is your predictions for 2021?
Well, I think some great points made here about having AI predict the future better and trends better, and making data collection easier, having systems that are less data intensive. But apart from all of this, what I really hope for is to give AI in the hands of the people, and to really send out the message that it is a people's technology, and really demystify AI. And I think with a country like India, where there is massive potential in the young people, and we are seeing innovators. India hosted the Smart India Hackathon 2020, the world's biggest hackathon. We were able to do it virtually. Some great use cases students had come up with, and the kind of messages that we're getting and the response that we're seeing. I think there is a lot of intent, but probably there is this glass ceiling, and AI is still looked at as this some sort of a magical technology which is out of bounds, which is not the case. And so I really hope that through coincided efforts and the right collaborations, the right intent, the right policies, the right initiatives, we can demystify AI and send out the message to all the young people out there that it is something meant for you, and that we should take it in our hands and deploy it to get a better society and a better country and a better world. That's what I'm rooting for in 2021.
Well said, Samiksha. Quite philosophical, quite deep insights. So let's wrap this up. And unfortunately, yes, Sinduja has joined back.
She's back here.
She experienced some difficulties, and so yeah. Any final thoughts? Before we wrap it up, what are your final thoughts? Anyone want to share something that we missed out?
Final thoughts. Well, yeah, AI. Of course, we've always been looking at AI from a very serious standpoint, solving global challenges. But perhaps we should also look at the lighter side of AI far more deeply, because things are not too bright for many people staying cooped up at home. Entertainment. How can AI play a bigger role in entertainment? Silly things like somebody who played cricket 100 years back or 70 years back having sort of imagining them playing cricket in today's format, Donald Bradman playing cricket in today's format, and what could it possibly do? Silly things like that,
It will be crazy to see Don Bradman playing 2020.
2020, silly things like that, or anything, even an actor who acted say 60, 70 years back, being in a movie today, how would they again, the bias is going to be very strong. So Jibu, one thing I just wanted to add, you said about you being biased against cats and dogs. The interesting thing is at least you are
Don't put that,
aware.
put that
Yeah,
on me.
at least you're aware that you have a bias. Not necessarily cats and dogs, but you have a bias. But the real challenge is going to be when humans are not even aware of the fact that there is a bias.
Yeah.
That is going to have a
Yes.
deeper impact, perhaps, because if you know something, you can at least take corrective action. But if you're unknown about it, then you're not even in a position. That's
Yeah, I think that's where this whole new industry of algorithmic auditing is going
yeah.
to take over. And very 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 insightful point there, Soumitra. Sindhuja, any final thoughts before you head
I
for your
I think it's been a year of great learnings for everyone here. I think, the industry at large, the ecosystem together, I think there's just a lot that we can learn and sort of reflect from each other. What's nice is that AI is no longer becoming this exclusive technology. I think it's been reinstated time and again, even by, some of our leaders even within the industry who believe that this is not AI for just data scientists. It's just not just for software, engineers. It's for everyone. It's literally AI for all. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how we all, at some level, at some point, will play a very definitive role in shaping that AI and what that result is really going to be. So will it become more humane? Will it be a lot more receptive to actual human problems, or is it just going to continue to be more exclusive and only cater to, like, say, a set of people and their problems? So I think that's kind of like an area that is yet to be seen, and I think we're hopefully on the right track. I think people are doing their level best to strip away this exclusivity around it, and I just hope it continues in that manner and really does become inclusive. And it's not going to be inclusive if you don't include everybody in that conversation. So I think that's something I'm looking forward to, hopefully, to change.
wind up. So let me wind up. Let's hope 2021 will see very very interesting innovations and solutions for many of our problems, and may we as a country be able to leverage this power of this incredible technology for socio-economic transformation, inclusion, and empowerment.
So I wanted to make a point which I forgot. See, the IT industry is what it is today because of engineers, right? World-class engineers we have. So in India, if you see from the 60s, 70s decade, parents pushed their children into engineering field. Those who got better marks in their class 12 exams, they took up engineering. And that's how we had generations and generations of engineers passing out and then moving into various territories, especially IT, engineering, other hard industries. But we need to create that, and people took that prestige. People were ready to pay even poor parents were ready to pay very high capitation fees, in the 90s decade, to get people admitted into engineering colleges. We need that same kind of mindset or same kind of pride in mathematics and statistical thinking. That same kind of obsession which Indian parents had to get their children into engineering colleges 20, 30 years back. We need that same kind of pride and same kind of social equity, so that, the next generation of young Indians are obsessed to take up pure mathematics and statistics above everything else, so that we can have a whole range of data scientists, and only then can we do cutting edge work. That is all I wanted to say.
I
That's
think adding to that point, I think you are absolutely right that we need to have such people who are completely taking statistics and mathematics as the subject, but we cannot, leave out those people who are from the non-technical,
Yeah,
non-mathematical kind of background,
yeah,
because I think those people also can, incorporate a lot using
sure,
this technology, or adding more to it. So
sure,
it should be I think combination of both of these
sure,
sets.
sure.
So in the end, it's about as we have mentioned many times, that Sindhuja and I discuss this very often. It's about having expertise in a particular domain. It's about being bilingual or multilingual, or how do you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
So if you let's say you know all the statistics, you know all the mathematics, you're a good coder, you're a good data scientist, and you are asked to figure out an algorithm to improve the quality of milk produced, or milk powder produced, right? You will pretty much end up making the worst possible algorithms, right? Now, on the other hand, if you understand how dairy industry work, let's say for an 80%, or like not completely, maybe have an idea what are the factors that ensures a quality milk powder, and those kind of factors, then you can and good coding, then yeah, there's a combination, right? I think that's what happened in New Zealand few months ago. So I think it's all about having, let's say, 80% domain expertise and a 20% insight into picking the right problems and what kind of technology that can be applied. It's like even AI. We call it artificial intelligence technology. It's not like one a particular thing, right? You have so that it comes down to that, right? It comes down to having the domain knowledge is very important. And so let's wind this up. I think in last 40-50 minutes we covered almost every major problems in the AI, and good to hear your thoughts. And Sindhuja, please sign off.
Thank you everybody for joining in. It was really quite a pleasure to listen to such a diverse set of perspectives on what AI should be. And let's just hope that 2021 is a lot more exciting, a lot less traumatic, hopefully, on everybody. And, we can just move on and try to make some more incremental changes in the way we think, the way we work, and the way we really sort of approach AI. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe and have a great new year.